Hey everybody, my name is Ivica. Thank you so much for joining me on the latest episode of I'm Gaming Podcast. This is a podcast about the video game industry, entrepreneurship, gaming nostalgia, mass fears and their prevalence, and many more things I find to be in the same realm of business and creative ventures. Like always, first and foremost, a huge, enormous thanks goes to my Patreon supporters who really and truly make this podcast possible. Without your generous and continuous monthly donations, I would not be able to do this, so a big thanks to all of you and everyone else. Please check out my supporters in the description below. Now, this is episode 263 and it's all about a growing and prevalent problem in my view, that is the presence of mass fears. So if you're working in the video game industry, you probably have a bit of the same feeling already. That feeling comes from the issue of the video game industry crisis that began nearly 2 years ago and which is continuing to happen on and off, and it's closing down studios, it's shutting down projects, it's slashing workforces and sending a lot of people into layoff territory. For the first time ever, I'm guessing, this is not contained to a particular part of the industry or particular type of workplace. Instead, you probably saw and maybe even experienced that a lot of people on media and even senior positions are losing their jobs because entire teams are laid off, from the managing director or game director all the way to the most recent junior member. Everyone loses their job. So it's easy to get kind of sucked into that atmosphere of fearing stuff. And the same kind of goes beyond the gaming industry. If you look at the global events and happenings, they are pretty fear enabled, if we can call them like that. And that is an issue that we face every day. From wars to the economic situation, which goes back to the issue of the gaming industry crisis, but many other industry crises, to global climate change, to so many elements, from regular terrorism to exotic terrorism to potential terrorism to lone wolf terrorism and so many types and kinds of terrorism, to many other things that are big, small, medium, whatever you like. This is one of the reasons I wrote a book which is called Overcoming Mass Fears, or Using Psychology to Overcome Mass Fears, and I did it in the early days of the global COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the issue there was not the process of resolving the pandemic through the creation of the vaccines and then the application of the same vaccines, which I still fully support. I'm too vaccinated, and I think that vaccines are really good and really useful for the human civilization. But the issue was how the media, particularly mass media, is using mass fears to kind of generate revenue, basically, and how that process kind of connects to our innate human nature, which is our desire to protect ourselves, protect our loved ones, protect our assets, whatever they might be. And mass media, or the pop culture in general, found a way to piggyback on that and basically use our fears to generate profit without providing us with anything, even though on the surface it might look like they're providing us with information that is useful. It is not. Or it is useful to a certain degree, but that degree is incredibly tiny compared to the other part, which is simply injecting us with things to worry and fear about, which we can't influence at all. Just again, let's shuffle back to the gaming industry, and if you're reading to, for example, gaming media, you'll often find, whatever they might be, news and articles about studio closures, about projects going down. And if you're combining that, for example, with LinkedIn, a social network for professionals, you'll probably see a lot of people really desperate to find work, to figure out what to do, and be kind of outside of that process when they're solely connected to a single company that went under and now they have basically no way to pay the bills. If you connect these two, and you have to connect them, subconsciously you get this feeling of total and utter doom. The same feeling will not help you if you're in the gaming industry. It will not save you or protect you from potential layoffs, and it won't provide you with anything comforting in terms of emotions, because there's no ending to that story. There is simply the rising danger, and that's the end of it. There's no happy end, there's no sad end, there's no end whatsoever. You're just in that state of not just fear, but anxiety related to the possibility of the potential futures that might come. The future will come no matter what, and it will have its share of issues and problems. A lot of times the future will be completely unexpected. Again, 2019 and the COVID pandemic is one of very graphic examples of how those things happen. Those things will continue to happen, but the idea, especially behind my book, is kind of to help people provide themselves with that ability to protect their mental space, let's call it ideation. So it's your cognitive part, the part that is kind of related to your core intelligence that solves problem on a practical level, and your emotional landscape, which doesn't solve problems in a particularly practical sense, but still allows you to kind of overcome processes and issues that you face regularly, big, small, and whatever they might be. Instead of allowing external forces to kind of influence those baseline ideas and behaviors that we all have as humans to a certain degree, the book, Using Psychology to Overcome My Fears, is here to kind of teach you how these mechanisms work and then have the ability to recognize them. Whatever your alliance or allegiance or alignment in terms of your ethics, morality, politics, social outlook, and so forth, economic outlook might be, the idea is to recognize the moment when somebody is making money from the fact that you're scared, and no one on that side is providing you with any kind of ability or method of resolving those fears because they continue to make these same actors money directly. I think that's a big problem and something that we need to be aware of, again, regardless of what we actually believe in terms of what is happening in the world and what is the quote-unquote truth. We still need to understand and apply these ideas to kind of help us sift through the elements that are purely there to generate someone money, and those ideas that are there to kind of show us something that is happening in the world. We accept that, place it in our minds, and move on. If there are issues that we need to protect ourselves against, we apply them and again move on. Instead, a lot of times these actors simply want us to stay put. And staying put, psychologically speaking, is a big issue no matter what process you're in, no matter what might be happening. So, if you'd like to kind of help yourself overcome mass fears, no matter if they're industry specific, like those connected to the gaming industry, or they're general, connected to the wider world, please check out my book on Using Psychology to Overcome Mass Fears. The link is in the description below. And if you do get it, I would love to hear what you think about it, and a big thanks to you for choosing to get it. So, that's basically it for this episode. Hopefully you found it useful, hopefully you found it interesting. If you did, please consider supporting me through a range of means, including my Patreon page. Of course, check out my other books on Amazon and this one as well. And consider subscribing for a lot more content, generally like this, but also in many other shapes and forms of YouTube clips. That's all for me. My name is Ivica. Thanks a lot for being here. Have a great day, have a great week, and I'll talk to you precisely 7 days from now on a new episode of I'm Gaming Podcast. Until then, bye bye.